You're going to speak to us about the selectmen and town administrator budgets.
There he is. Yes. The relatively small budgets, you know, selectmen's budget, town administrator's budget, you don't change.
I got it all. I can get this far.
Town administrator, new town administrators, that's based on what was negotiated with the board.
If you want to change seats, I can straddle that for you.
And the assistant in the office, it's based on what the.
You got elbow.
I can get all the way in.
That is, really basically, everything else is level funded at this current year. And right now, we're running close to the budget, so should be fine for next year. Any questions?
I'm going to have to ask here, so, in the town administrator's budget,
Yes.
there's a line item for merit-based pay incentive.
Yes.
That was there for a purpose in the past, but last year, when Leon put forward his salary plan with the steps and grades and steps and so forth, I thought he had said in the end that that merit plan was no longer needed because people would move up in their steps and get the extra amount where that merit line item was sort of doing that as he was handing that, allocating that out to performers who were just getting the regular general wage increases and not getting any step increases. So I'm trying to understand why we still have that in this year's budget and how it would be implemented in addition to the other salary structure we have.
Well, as far as I know, the merit structure was still in place. Because I was asked to do the analysis, all the reviews for all department heads, and salary positions. And I haven't heard anything different about that, to be honest with you. I assumed it would still be in the budget for next year, but it wasn't.
Understanding of that is that's another way of calling that a performance bonus.
You could say that. And it is based on performance because you do have to.
Meet certain goals and objectives.
Exactly, each year.
Up to all of it.
This is
None of it is awarded.
No, this is true. This is the way it was in place before I came here back in September, and I haven't heard anything from anybody that would change. They would still go forward again.
Nothing automatic about that. You meet these objectives.
Right, it's from 0 to 2%.
All a part of it.
0 to
If you don't
2%.
You get nothing.
Correct.
That's what I thought. That was my understanding.
And it hasn't.
It doesn't
hasn't
go
changed.
on your base, does it? I don't
It's a
believe.
one-time
Just
stipend.
a one-time. stipend.
No, it's not. So I didn't understand it as it going away. It's always been kind of a, like, quote-unquote bonus above and beyond your salary.
Correct.
Based on your performance, and it's
Based on achieving
subjective.
goals.
Well, but it's subjective. They
Yes.
might think you're doing a great job, they might think Kathy's doing an even better job, and say, okay, Kathy, we're gonna give you $2,000, and Jim, we'll just give you like
No,
a
it's
nickel.
2% of your salary. It's not
I
like 2.
understand it's up to 2% of your salary,
Yeah.
but you don't have to get the 2%.
Correct.
And in fact, I should have asked before the meeting, because I usually do ask, I would love to see what was awarded last year as far as it, meaning, I don't need particulars, okay, but I would like to see if 100% was used, or, what the percentage is. Because my understanding is there was only 1 or 2 that did not get a full.
Yeah, I'd
2%.
have to check and have that information given.
So,
Well,
Joni,
that's-
it's right here in the line items,
Oh, is
right?
it?
And that's
Fiscal
right.
year 19, you had a budget line item of 23,937, but didn't you just pay 18,763? Isn't that how that reads?
Sorry? So, no, what I was asking for was
Oh.
how much of the 23K
Oh, actually went out the window, yeah.
went out the window.
Well, in 18, though,
Have to check.
actual expenditure was 18,760.
3.
I don't
Where
know
are
what
you
the
seeing
budget
actual
was.
expenditures?
In those-
Oh, you're on that page.
We just go to that, it'll give you more detail.
Got it.
Yeah, I don't know what the actual budget was, but I suspect it was more than 18.
I would think
Just based
so.
on what it was last year.
And we don't have 19 because the year's not over.
Well, yeah, it's not over.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's 18, so I don't see where that's
Right, I read that backwards.
Yeah, okay.
But Kathy's got a point. I mean, it would be like, it goes up based on the salary. So if salaries went up 3%.
That's right.
It was over $18,000 because it would have been in the
I think
20s
last year
somewhere.
it was 2.5 or,
Oh, I-
I
yeah.
forget actually, but it wasn't 3.
Whatever that agreed upon percentage was.
But it's a one-time stipend, it doesn't go on the base salary.
Correct, does not go on the
Yeah.
base.
No, and just because you get it this year, you're not promised it every year.
This is
So
true.
it's not, yeah,
I understand it.
yeah.
So again, my understanding was, going back a number of years, the way the salary structure was working, there was the general wage increase that employees got, but there really wasn't a mechanism to move them up through a series of steps to move up in their grade to the, from the low end to the high end of the pay scale in there. That this was the mechanism that was put in place for employees who met their goals and performed well to get that, use the word bonus, but it's a one-time salary payment during the year to kind of offset the fact that there really wasn't a mechanism to move them up in their pay range. And once Leon implemented the new salary plan with the steps, that they have the opportunity to make that move up. If they perform and the town administrator decides that it's appropriate to move them to the next step in their grade. If you have a poor performer, you wouldn't automatically move them up because they've been here another year. You'd move them up. And the way those steps are, there's more than just the general wage adjustment, based on the various percent increases that staff is getting here. So, again, I thought with the new plan that this was no longer being implemented. So it sounds like we have a new plan with some hefty step increases for employees who are performing and moving up, plus a potential another 2%, plus the clarification Barbara gave us is if you've been here more than 5 years. I thought the longevity pay was at your 5th anniversary, 10th anniversary, 15th, and 20th, you got a small amount of money. But Barbara explained that it's starting in your 5th year, you get that small incentive pay every year. It increases, as time
You
goes
would get
on.
150 years, 5 through 9, and then year 10 it goes to up,
Yeah.
and then you get a 10 to 14.
I
yeah.
thought it was always implemented, I see it implemented in other communities where it's on the 5th anniversary to 10th anniversary.
No, I understand exactly what you're saying. she was saying it was 5 to 9, then 10 to 14,
So you
15
get
to
it years
19.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and
Then it
so
goes
on.
up
You get
higher
every
in
year.
year 10, and then
Higher
it
in
goes
year
up
10,
higher
yeah.
in 15.
So it's
yeah.
not like an every 5th year extra,
No.
thanks for sticking around, it's another extra piece. So I'm getting the sense, and I want our employees to feel valued, compensated well, but I'm getting the sense that there's a lot of things on the salary side being piled in here and adding up. So I guess I need to better understand or get more comfortable with why, at least with this element, why we need it, given the change in
I
the salary.
can only tell you tonight what I was understanding, the way the process is, that what was put into place, that you have the steps, the grades and the steps. The steps, I believe, were extended a couple of years ago with Leon, and they would be automatic, not
Yeah.
based on your performance.
No, exactly, that's what I was going to say. I thought that's how it was automatic. Every year you make that
And that-
grade, you go up.
And the idea was to try to encourage people to stay and not be taken away from other communities, because you would have, your pay would be more in line with what the market is. That's the way I understand it, whether,
And there are certain
How
positions.
many people are in that pool?
what's it
The
about?
department head.
It's department head, so it might be a dozen, 15.
Yeah.
You had a chart in last year's in the back.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, so I should show you right there. I didn't count them out.
It's a large number of people.
It's all their department
dozen.
heads, salary department heads.
Yeah.
And so that's the way I understood it. And the performance bonus was the one-time stipend each year if you succeeded in your goals and objectives and did a good job based upon that. Longevity, I haven't even talked about with anybody, so that, I assume is, as you said, 5 years, you get a certain amount, and you will get that certain amount until you reach 10 years, and you have a different amount. So there are 3 components to your pay in that respect. One is changes the cost of living, the other 2 are it's a one-time stipend for longevity. Doesn't increase, stays whatever the amount is unless you change the amounts.
I think it must be 150, because I'm looking at the accountant.
Yeah.
That's a
that's what he said.
if it's 150 for 5 years,
But,
that would be.
At 5 years, it's 150.
That would be
And the
150
First one is 100, then it's 150, she told me.
So that 100 would be each year from 5 to 9.
Yes, and then it goes to
year 10,
150.
Right, but that, once again, would be set and not part of the pay. You know, that would be a one-time, like a stipend, like the performance. That's the way I understand it. I wish I could tell you more, but I
Can I
thought that was the way it was worked here, so that's all I
want to
know.
follow up on something. So were you responsible this year for doing the performance evaluations and setting these things?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so are they stretch goals, or is it just a matter of them doing what their position is well? Or is it in addition to your responsibility as fire chief, finance director, whatever the position may be, you had this stretch goal to, attain accreditation or keep accreditation?
Yeah.
Is that what it's based on, or is it just based on doing their job well?
There was no set criteria, I learned. What I did utilize was, most heavily on the goals to see if they were achieved. And also I looked at things such as response to the public, response to my, me as a department head while I was here for a few months, how you worked with other people. I had about 4 or 5 criteria I tried to use and did the best I could, with the 3 or 4 months that I was here. But I was asked to do that, so I did what I could. But there is no set criteria. That may be something that would be good for the next person to take care of and put that criteria in. But right now, I didn't have any map to go with. I utilized some of what I did in the past in my other occupation, other town.
Are there goals set each year by the
There's
department?
definitely goals each year set.
And who sets those?
It's with the town administrator and the department head. They sit down and go over them each year.
Together.
And then I review the goals that they had for the past year as a calendar and set new goals and set all new goals for this calendar year.
So would you categorize them as meeting goals that are just part of their normal job performance, or are you giving them something that is a little bit beyond what their normal job is?
Well, I think it has to be part of your job, but it would be specific issues or items that they would not necessarily do, but something they're trying to stretch. I would say, yeah, it's true. It's not your everyday job, but new projects and mechanisms such as that.
So I guess I would direct this to you, but since you're exiting the position here, I guess I'll ask Mike, as a selectman here. I understand there's a warrant, we're looking at a possible warrant article to do a salary classification study next year, and it'd be nice as part of that and feedback from the personnel committee if we could also at least better understand the salary and compensation structure here and how it compares to these comparable communities that we're setting salary ranges against here. I'm not aware, I don't, at least in the few communities I'm more knowledgeable about, I don't see those elements the way we have here.
I don't know if Mike
It
knows.
seems a little out of place for me.
Yeah, I'm not sure Mike knows that much about what the classification plan. I was actually the one that recommended to the board to put it in.
That'd be my ask, if we're going to do
But
that compensation study.
That could be done. That could, you could expand it to cover, that kind of a criteria, right? And, Mike would be here after I'm
Yeah.
gone. I would be happy to share that with Jeff.
Yeah, but, since, and I have had, conversations with the interim town administrator of a few things that we might, whoever we hire to do the classification study, to look into a couple other things, a couple other components that we need to make the, the whole system that we use competitive with other municipalities. But again, we don't want to, overpay. So we want to be very competitive, and so that's the whole idea of doing a classification study. And
Classification study, in a broader sense, is a
Yeah.
compensation study.
Exactly.
So you're not just talking about classes with numbers in it. You're talking about a total package for each position.
Each-
Doesn't just, excuse me, doesn't just include what they're gonna make in pay. It's our benefit package. It's our
correct.
bonus package if we have one. It's a total compensation study.
Exactly.
And if you're gonna pay the money to a consultant to do it, you might as well get
Sure.
the whole thing.
The full
Because it's
scope.
not gonna cost a heck of a lot
Right,
more
no,
to get
that-
everything as
I
opposed to.
I
do
agree.
piecemeal.
That would be the way to do it.
And that's the type of conversation that myself and I'm sure, and the selectmen have talked amongst ourselves about, we want to make sure that we get the whole package and do it, have a fair, so that
So is that gonna-
hopefully all of the employees will realize that we're trying to be fair.
Will the compensation
equitable.
committee be engaged in this along with the selectmen and the town?
In the
Yeah,
personnel.
personnel.
Because, Joni,
yeah,
you're
the-
on compensation committee now, right?
Personnel.
Personnel.
But I was left
Per-
off the last couple of
Okay.
meetings.
Personnel,
That's right.
Should be, they should be.
Personnel
I
is
would
what I
think they would be. I would think they would be, yes.
actually, in my.
As long as you get invited.
Actually, in my conversations with the chair of the Board of Selectmen, I believe that the personnel
Yeah.
would be the lead on the whole package, and the selectmen would just oversee.
I just have one thing, the town has a history of putting together these studies, and then not having a deadline for something to be implemented is part of this warrant article saying the study will start July 1st or whenever we hire the person, be completed by October 30th, in place for the next town meeting?
You would
Are
do-
there set dates?
You would do that in your request for proposals, so yes, you would do that. That should be very doable.
And Kevin, to your point, like all these studies we do.
Yeah.
It should be specific about what the goals and objectives are, specifically what we're trying to find out.
I agree.
Not just that we're trying to do this generals. It has to be well-defined.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to, and some of the other stuff we do, we say, well, we're gonna do this, but it also has to be based on, let's have an idea, what's the likelihood, depending on what the cost range is gonna be, that we're actually gonna do it. Well, we're gonna do a study. Well, the study's gonna cost $90,000, and we estimate the project's gonna cost $6 million. You might ask yourself up front, why are we doing this study to begin with if we know we're not gonna spend $6 million? So anyway, that's
No,
been my frustration with some of the studies we've done.
10 to 15.
Yeah. Okay. And that's in the article?
Well, it's going to be.
It's
I
gonna
was
be,
just talking to
yeah.
Barbara about that, the amount.
It's not $90,000.
No,
No, I think he was taking just that out of
You
the
shocked, you shocked me, because
I was just pulling an example.
I didn't think it was anywhere
That
near.
did seem a little high for that type of study.
87, 88.
It's a hypothetical.
When you said that,
Oh,
I
you're
was
not gonna
like,
do
I
something
turned
because it's gonna be too
real quick.
expensive.
and
Why do you
said,
spend the
"It's
money
not-
to study it?"
Not anywhere near that amount,
I think he was talking about much larger projects.
Yeah.
yeah, but,
Sorry,
Thank you.
we didn't want to give you a heart attack there.
So Ted, in your prior community, did you have those elements in the in the compensation plan, Arizona?
I did.
And including the step increases?
Did I have, I didn't have the exactly same format, but I did have the evaluation each year in that, in order to progress for a compensation increase, you would have to have a good performance.
And you mentioned the steps being automatic. I think if you're in a bargaining position, your steps are automatic. But I know Leon and Barbara have mentioned that at least for the non-represented people that are in that program, it's not an automatic increase. If you have poor performance, they were not going to automatically step you up.
Okay, that would be counter to everything that's ever been done, because the idea is to keep them similar to the union contracts, and the union contracts have automatic increases whether you have poor job performance or you're the greatest thing since, sliced bread. And that's usually how it works here, so that would be very different, but it'd be interesting to see if it actually worked that way.
And the difference is, you're not trapped by a bargaining agreement, so if someone's not performing, you can put them on notice for 30, 60, 90 days or whatever, and if they don't, if you put a corrective plan in place and they don't meet the correction, you can terminate them.
Do we know, is it documented? This thing about what, it's not automatic?
What's automatic?
That you're here another year. I mean, is it
Well, even if
part
it's
of-
automatic, it doesn't matter. They could get a raise in July and you could terminate them in October because they didn't perform. I mean, that's what I'm just saying. It's an employment at will type of situation in the absence of a bargaining agreement. So what you have to do is make sure you construct it in such a way that you're fair to the person and say, if they're not performing, you tell them they're not performing, you give them a remediation plan so they can bring their performance up to level, and if they don't, and you go through all the steps, and if they don't,
It's
you
a-
shake
it's a
hands and you
progr-
part
it had-
company,
It has to be
that's
done
all.
progressively, but you're right.
Right. So, because in the absence of a union bargaining agreement, you have a lot more freedom to do that, as long as you're fair and equitable.
Correct.
So, yeah, so if person automatically gets a raise, doesn't mean that a month later, they're not gonna get a handshake,
Well,
you know, but I'm just saying.
Usually takes
I-
more than a month.
Yeah, of course it
Theoretically,
does.
theoretically, correct.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
came as the same place as the $6 million.
It would take,
Okay.
it would take probably at least 6 months to a year if somebody was
Yeah.
going down the tubes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you really have to,
You have to
Sort of build your
do it
case,
the
so to
right
speak.
way.
Yeah, you couldn't do it a month later. You could, anything's possible, but it'd be, I think, pretty severe.
But you're not trapped forever.
That's true, but collective bargains are very difficult, as you said. I mean, it's possible to have a performance evaluation, a collective bargaining agreement, but you don't see it very often in public service.
No, that would take years.
Are you still taking questions? I have a question on one other line item. The matching grant funds, I understand the purpose of the matching grant funds is, but are we truly expending $20,000 a year? Or is that something that could be realistically brought down to 15 or 10 or some other number?
at one
Was-
point it was 10, and then
Yeah,
it
it
was
was.
raised to 20, I think, for a reason, but, for example, in 18, the actual was only 4,000.
I'm sorry, once again, I'd probably have to defer to Barbara on that. She would know more than I would at that one. At this point, I don't know what that's being utilized for. Matching grant funds. Yeah.
I mean, would we have the, I remember the argument was that if we had to act quickly and have that matching funds, that we
Right.
should have it, but couldn't we use a reserve fund transfer?
Yeah, we used to, and this was to prevent the need to have to wait for us to meet to have a reserve fund transfer done. But I mean, sometimes they have an expectation of what's coming, what grants proposals are coming
Right,
up.
right,
And
right.
so they know, okay, yeah, $20,000 makes sense in this year because we know we need $10,000 for some fire department grant and we need $5,000 for maybe something for the veterans. And, you know, so there's $15,000 right away, and then you want something in case something pops up during the year. But, I mean, like you just noted, it was 4,000 and we're putting 20, you know.
Well, it's
In
been 20 for quite
18,
some
we spent
time.
4,074 out of
Right.
it.
It's been 20 for a while, I think it just repeats.
Well, it hasn't been, well, my memory is, I forget how long I've been here, but I remember that it was about 5 or 10,000.
It was,
At
huh?
first, and we kept it at that amount, but then it was increased one year because of the fire department. They had some apparatus grant and they needed, and they knew it was forthcoming, so they had to increase the matching grant fund because you need to have X number of dollars, I guess, right away, or
Yeah, it's possible. It's very
however the
possible.
process goes.
You have safer grants, you have a lot of grants.
Right.
Police too.
Right,
I bet.
just, but it was increased specifically, I remember, for February. I can go back in my notes and look for it. But it stayed at 20, and it was never really in dispute.
Yeah.
And I do remember Barbara talking about it, saying that it's better to have it, because the reserve fund transfer isn't always fast enough, right? But
If you don't spend it, it just goes back.
if you don't spend it, it goes back, but it is interesting that they usually do know ahead of time, and that was my question. I was gonna ask, do you know what is forthcoming for the,
I have
For the
no
year for
knowledge of a
matching
grant
grants?
program that's needed for, I wish I, doesn't mean it's not there, I just don't have knowledge of it.
right?
And I'm okay with, as of today, we don't have any grants that we're chasing or aware of, but during fiscal year, things could come up.
Yeah, definitely.
That's
I mean,
probably the way it
I
happens.
understand what Barbara is saying, that there's a possibility it could happen. It would be good to have it funds there instead of trying to chase it. But I just don't have knowledge of a
Yeah.
particular grant program that's my fault, I guess, because I didn't ask the question, but,
Well, Barbara's coming on Tuesday, so we can ask.
yeah, it should be.
Okay.
Yeah, and
There's a lot of
I'll
stuff.
be here Monday to meet with Jeff, and I gotta take some notes here. and
Yeah,
talk to
I
him
mean,
about it.
it's not a lot of money, but still, it ends up in the tax rate, so.
Right.
So you won't be here next week?
I will be here Monday.
Just
and
Monday?
Tuesday.
Just Monday?
Well, I'll be here as long as
Oh, I see.
Jeff needs me, or wants me to stay, you know, I mean,
Yeah, then
Got it.
Jeff starts on Monday, yeah,
he begins Monday.
yeah. On April Fool's Day, which seems ominous. But anyway, any other questions on the TA budget?
On the,
I want to just try to summarize a little bit. Non-bargaining unit employees, they don't have any language in their contracts that say you have to be at least satisfactory or better?
There is no contract for them.
No contract.
It's just the person. assistant
Well, there's
of-
policies, but
Policy.
there's no
Personnel,
contract, right?
yeah. Correct, there's no contract or anything written that I know, but bylaw or anything. It's just something that is instituted by the town administrator.
So
And
all
Board of
town
Selectmen.
employees' steps are awarded if you're just there on the date of your anniversary. It'll be,
I think it's fiscal, but correct.
And as part of this compensation study, if we want to call it that we're going to do, something that's integral to that is job descriptions. So you know exactly what the expectations are at a minimum of every person that's in one of those positions. If you don't have good job descriptions, you don't have a leg to stand on. So,
True.
I worked under a contract that had step increases that were based on performance at least satisfactory.
Any other questions on the town administrator budget?
Just the TA we're talking about.
Well, that department,
Okay,
not the board of selectmen yet.
all right, okay. No, I'm
It's a
good.
different
My
de-
next
that's a
question's
different
the Board of
department.
Selectmen, yeah.
And actually, Larry, I don't know if you'd like to make that motion, since it's your department, so to speak. Hey, I knew ahead of time.
Ready for the motion?
I think so, yes.
I move the Finance Committee recommend to the annual town meeting for the town administrator the sum $253,536 under budget section 11231, line items 3 through 7 inclusive.
Is there a second?
second?
Okay. I just want to, we're in the comment section, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to vote against it, not because I'm opposed to it, but because I'd like to have those questions answered about, how all these things we posed that you said Barbara was coming on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Why the matching grant funds at 20,000, why, how the merit-based incentive
All right, well,
is
then
or
you
is
want-
not documented or applied.
Well, then there's, there a
It
sense
is,
that we
it
should.
is documented and it is applied, that I do know.
It is, okay.
Yeah, we have a form that I fill out, and go sit down with each department head, went through it all. So it's definitely documented. But I can't help you with the grants.
And I would, I'd be okay with purchase of services or supplies and matching grants. I'm not opposed to the 20,000, whether we use it or not. I just still have a concern with that merit-based pay. Given the new pay system that we've implemented, I need more time to get comfortable with it or better understand why it makes sense to have that in addition to the new system we have. So I would vote against that section of it, but if we're doing a complete budget, I'll just vote no for them all if we're going to vote tonight.
Well, does everyone feel they have enough information at this point?
I'd also like to know about that merit-based pay, because I'm a little confused about, I thought the step was in place for performance. So I would feel comfortable if the merit-based was because they were doing something above and beyond what they were expected to do to get the step, and what exactly is above and beyond? And how is that defined? Is that defined at the beginning of somebody's term? Like if you do this additional stretch type of responsibility, you're gonna be eligible for a merit-based pay? Because it's a little confusing. Because I think the step was you perform, you do what you're supposed to do, you're gonna get the pay. If you don't perform, we have the flexibility to say, no, you're not gonna step up.
That's not the way I understand it to be. I understand it to be that the steps were set in place to help encourage people to stay as department heads because they would have an avenue to receive a better market rate. And that the
Regardless of performance, you're gonna step.
regardless of performance. And the performance stipend was based on how they did their job.
And the merit base, if they perform above and
Correct.
beyond, or
That
even
is-
just do a really good job,
Right.
the merit base is where they get that.
Correct.
Extra, okay, thank you.
And the way I've always understood that is, the step system is, they make the step at the interval, every year they make that step. And if their performance is not fully satisfactory, then you go into a corrective process.
Okay.
Correct.
So, and The bonus, the incentive, is not for fully satisfactory, it's for exceptional performance,
Okay.
above and beyond what's
It's,
expected.
it's an individual
You
merit.
don't get a bonus for just doing your job.
Right,
It's just, sometimes that's where you have to judge the goals and say, I think Kevin made this point, is the goal part of the base job? Why is that, why is you being an incentive to do your job?
right.
You know, you have to perform above and beyond to get the bonus. In the-
But that's on how the goals are set.
Right, if the goals are layups, I mean, you know.
Yeah, so.
Well, we don't know what was awarded out of the merit last year, so.
In
that's
18,
why-
it was, we have it for 18. We won't have it for this year until the end of the fiscal year is over. But for
Are you referring to
18,
the
it's in
18
here.
pay?
Yeah.
The actuals? The
Yeah, that was
Merit
actual.
pay incentive, paid out 18,763 out of whatever it was. I
It
don't
was
know what
22
Okay, but-
something.
Out of the 23.
But we're doing fiscal year 20. I want to know what
We
fiscal
want to know
year
what
19
19, and we
is.
won't know that until the
But-
fiscal year
But
ends.
Barbara,
Like-
true,
like you.
but Barbara might have an idea.
She might, and she's going to be here Tuesday.
I don't know I don't know when you do your annuals, if it's a calendar year annual or if it's a fiscal year.
It's calendar.
Yeah, most places are still calendar year regardless of your fiscal year, right? So she may already know
She may,
that.
okay, I didn't understand it that way, so
Yeah,
if
most,
that bonus cycle is closed, then she might have a very
I
good
think you
idea.
want, I think the idea is at least to have the funds in there to, have the funds there to
Right.
award. The assumption is you're having very good employees in that they're making their
Right.
goals.
if everybody was getting the extra 2% every year, then the system is broken.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? And I don't think
Absolutely.
that's what's being done.
No, because
That's
If you're not paying out the full amount,
They're
then
not-
No, I remember I asked Barbara every year, if everything was used. I don't need particulars, I just would like to know if 100% was used for each of the departments, and she'll say yes or no. And I even recall her sending the Finance Committee a couple of, graphs before showing that, I can try to find previous ones, but I know it's not something they like to publicize, but it is nice to know how much of it is being, so that you can decide if it's
I
a
guess
broken system.
regardless, it's still, would be good to have the funds there, because your assumption is you're going to pay the people because they're doing a good job.
Well, if it's based on 2% of their salary, then
Correct.
yes. Now, if throughout the year, Finance Committee adjusts salaries, that number also will get adjusted. We've done it in the past.
Yes.
We absolutely will adjust the merit if,
Then you would have to have a special town meeting to adjust
no,
that.
we'll do it
later.
before the budget.
We do it before the
We'll
budget.
do it before the budget ends. Because if we
Okay.
decide,
Well, this was based on the assumption that it's a 3% increase in compensation.
was it already based on the
exactly,
3%
but if,
increase?
for example, what if we decide to do 4% or
Well, then you would have-
1%?
you would have to
Then we
adjust
would
that.
have to adjust.
Yeah.
Correct. But
The merit
and
as well.
Regardless, the assumption is it's 3% today, based on my recommendation, and your recommendation, whether or not you want to take it or not.
Are
or
you
Jeff's
talking about COLA
recommendation.
now? Are you talking about the?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Because
So-
then you would base the 2% off the 3% that goes on to the base salary.
Understand.
After the steps, and that's what Barbara did.
Understand.
So the funds would be needed, so
No, I understand, but what I'm saying is, if throughout the process of the budget season, it's decided, it's voted that some of the department salaries change up or down, we will most definitely adjust the merit accordingly,
you could.
because it's 2%. No, we will.
Well, you would.
Yeah.
So I guess, is there any need to even vote tonight? You just wait to the end of the budget season. I mean, this is a budget. This is the best budget I have for you tonight, based on what information I have of Barbara. But if you are afraid
No.
you may not go with the COLA that's recommended, then I would say, hold on.
I'm okay to approve, to vote in favor of Larry's motion,
Okay.
because if it does get adjusted, we'll
You have to
absolutely
come back. You would come
go back and adjust it.
Agreed.
because that 2% is based on the pool.
Yes.
The size of the pool.
Right.
I
If one
agree.
salary goes up, the size of the pool
Right,
changes.
right, so I don't have a problem
Okay.
with that at
Well,
all.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
All right, we're ready to vote.
I just one point to make. I think it's, we should be careful trying to figure out how much was spent of it, how much do you think we're going to have spending of it, because really the goal should be everybody's performing to the highest possible standard,
Exactly.
and it gets spent. So if you should vote on what you assume will be spent, and whether or not it's
Right.
too easy or too hard, that's for the town administrator, and they can be evaluated on their you know, on
That would be
their
my
own.
recommendation.
We allocate the
We should
maximum size
Assume
of
the
the
best
pool.
and,
We should be ready to spend that amount of money, not,
Correct.
and not
No, we
approve
don't.
some and plan on others kind of betting against our employees. So-
exactly, and that's what this is based on.
Yeah,
Exactly
no, I
right.
agree.
Oh,
I
no,
agree.
you know, we shouldn't do.
I
yeah,
don't
we
think
should
that was,
definitely-
yeah, that's,
Just, yes, one.
Kevin?
I guess my clarification goes to Mike's point. I mean, I wasn't here when we implemented this thing for the department heads with the steps and the scales and so on. And I think, I'm not sure how it was sold, and I get the impression, you know, Mike and Karen have questions about what, was it intended to replace this merit-based pay? And then some others that I get, just based on the comments, is like, no, it never was. It's, the merit-based place is still there. And the new guy is confused because it's not clear.
right, and
It's clear to me, it's not based, they're separate.
And that's how it was explained to me by Barbara. It wasn't.
That's the way it's been explained to me, that's the way.
same here, I didn't interpret it as.
I have to ask,
Interpreted
was
it
it the
the same
same
way.
source of the information, no, to Jim and to you, you know?
Well, I think on the
And
Personnel
it was
Committee, I believe
also
Leon shared that with the Personnel Committee.
done
Yes, he
in a
did,
sense
he
to
did,
have-
Okay,
actually.
this-
yeah.
It was done to give structure to the non-bargaining group people that they had in the bargaining group. For instance, in all the union positions, whether it's in the school system or DPW or whatever, these systems are set up with step and grade.
Right.
And we were trying to be
Fair.
fair and equitable.
And competitive with our community so they don't leave, you don't lose good
Right.
people. That was the goal.
I get that, and I think Joni you just made a comment in agreeing with him, that you had heard this in the personal classification
Oh, yeah,
committee,
yeah.
that this was how it was intended.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and also keep in mind, it's just for the department heads.
Yeah.
This merit base, the people that report up to the TA. So it's strictly the, you know, like that.
It's about 12
That
people, I
hasn't
think.
changed. I think it's like a dozen people. That hasn't changed since I've been on the committee. I guess if that's how people heard it last year, I didn't hear it that way, but maybe because we did have conversations in Personnel Committee about it. I never thought that it was going away. But I do think, you know, it is important to know if everybody's getting 100%, you know, which is an additional 2%, that's not the intent. The intent is to reward and keep, you know, good people who do above and beyond. So I think that's how it's been used,
Yes.
Or at least intended.
at least intended, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, the steps, you can look at it as from the employee side, it gives them some security about the future. So I think that's an additional reason why you would put in the steps.
And if the survey is done correctly, it gives us some security too, because if for the same years of service, I can go to Charlton and get a $10,000 raise, then we're just gonna keep repeating the same mistakes over and over again, and we're gonna have to put a turnstile in, because people are gonna be coming and going, and we're gonna keep losing good people.
Well, that
go
goes
somewhere
back to
else.
how you set your salary compensation, because I've worked for employers in the past, have gone out, done the salary study, and they've come back and said, and we're just trying to match 50% of the marketplace. So they'll tell you right up front, there are companies out there that will pay more for the same position than we do, and if you want to go work for them and make more money, we understand we're going to leave you. We're coming up with a competitive salary, but we're not necessarily going to be the highest paid, the employer with the highest pay, so nobody leaves and everyone wants to come here. There's going to be some risk that somebody else out there is going to pay more money, and some employees may be tempted to chase that, and we might have to fill those positions, but, you know.
Another small issue you have in this community, which is, you know, is unique, is you only pay 60% of the health insurance, whereas many communities pay 75,
Right.
sometimes 80. And 60 is
It is a little on the low
really
side
low.
in
for-
municipalities.
You know, it seems, you know, if you're in a private sector, you may not get anything, but public service, when you're comparing other communities, if you're looking, if someone's looking for a job or coming here, sometimes you most have to compensate a little more just because you have lower insurance costs. I was surprised how low that percentage is.
So the phrase that comes to mind is total compensation package, and that's probably
Right.
part of what comes here. So
Right.
somebody may pay a higher salary, but you're paying a higher part of a higher share of your health insurance costs. Someone else may pay you not as much, and you think the salary's better, but they're paying more of your benefits. So
And that's
and, you know, you get it in how much is incentive comp versus
That's what I think Leon was thinking about
retirement
when he
package
put
as
that
well.
steps into place, trying to keep you up to market.
And to piggyback on what Mike said, though, is we're talking about a universe of municipal the municipal world. I mean, obviously, if someone's in a finance position and they want to leave town or city employment and go into the private sector and work for a $150 million a year company, they might go from $100,000 a year to $175,000 a year. That's a choice they make.
Correct.
But they have to make a dramatic career change to do that.
True.
And-
I mean, it's not about communities, it's,
Yeah.
other towns. 60%
That's who we're
60% is a
competing
low, is a low, very, it's the lowest percentage I've seen, I've seen 50/50 for retirees, but for active employees, it's usually, the 70,
What
75.
for active?
It's usually more.
Active municipal employees in communities comparable to Sturbridge.
Because I
is-
think most
is,
of the private sector around here is
75%,
80-20.
80, yeah.
Not so much anymore.
That's more the norm. So that, there is the cost of insurance is a little high, unfortunately, for all of us, and it doesn't go down.
Yes, it is.
And there's something that someone could take in consideration, but it's not, it probably won't be an absolute deal breaker, but it is something I think you have to think about too.
All right, we ready to take a vote?
Well, there's a motion on the
Yeah.
table, right? Yeah.
Well, that's fine.
Do
We're
we
ready to
still
vote.
have questions? Do we want to postpone this because we?
My only objective now to it is still the matching grants. I'd still like to know the necessity.
Oh, well, that,
But that's, I mean, otherwise, I think it's going to fly, so that's fine.
yeah. Why don't we take the vote? You can always reconsider.
Yeah.
All in favor? Opposed? So, let's see, that's 7-2. With Mike and Kevin. All right. Moving on to the Board of Selectmen.
Yes, the Board of Selectmen, I am sure you all have noticed, I've
We
made a
did.
recommendation for a stipend for the Board of Selectmen this year. And I discussed it a bit in the morning meeting, but I just feel that was my idea, not the Board of Selectmen's idea. And, I just feel that, in this community, you have volunteers who put a lot of time and effort. And Sturbridge, actually, this position isn't as strong as, say, a town manager. The Board of Selectmen are the executive branch. They actually have to say yes or no to even decisions that I would make as town administrator, Jeff. And many communities have stipends for their board members. Board members go to a lot of outside events that they have to go to and pay for out of their own pocket. And I just think out of respect for the position, and I think it's just the community should consider that. Sturbridge really should consider paying their selectmen. It's a small amount, which I wanted to even put a little more in, but they asked me to reduce it, so I reduced it to $1,250. I think it's $1,950 or so, or $1,900 in Charlton, your neighboring community. I just would ask you to consider a stipend for your Board of Selectmen.
I don't have an objection to it, and it's something we had many years back that came out, I think we,
It probably came out during the recession back in '09. I was in Northbridge, that happened. They stopped it. About 2 years later, it came back.
but the
And many communities did that. They brought it back a couple years after, once the recession kind of got past. It did happen, like I said, the community I worked for. But I hope you'll consider it.
And at that time, the stipends, they were for all boards. So planning board members it was a smaller stipend level than selectmen. Some of the other committees had stipends as well. You've only added this back in at the selectmen level for this year?
At this year, I'm just advocating for the selectmen. I think if it's successful, you might consider it in the future year, but that's really up to the community, not to me. I just know there's a lot of events, a lot of things that you have to go to, and they spend more time. They go to different things that I don't think they get compensated for, and they do it out of good. Everybody's volunteers. You're all volunteers. I understand that, but a community should consider the executive branch, who really does have a lot of strength in this community, a stipend for their time and effort. I don't know much more. I can't say much more than that. Just hope we ask you to consider it.
I'm sorry, I just have
I just want to make an observation, that I think it's fair and it's equitable to do this, in my opinion, and for this body to support this takes the selectmen off the hook in terms of them having to debate it and for their own whatever.
They wouldn't do it.
It takes the conflict of
They
interest
weren't-
out of
they-
it.
They didn't want me to do
Puts
this,
it
to be
on
honest
us.
with you. I
So,
said, no, I was going to do it.
I will support
So,
this
you know,
if it-
but,
if
you know,
it
it's
comes to a
not
vote.
the Board of Selectmen asking.
I understand.
It's the town administrator. And that's based on my other communities I worked for in my career, had stipends and, you know, I just feel it's something that you should consider.
But it's difficult for them to advocate on their own behalf, is
It's
what
very
I'm saying.
difficult for
So
them
if
to
we
advocate
take the
themselves,
onus
and they
off
probably
them,
wouldn't.
we can do it,
So
right.
I guess we have to, that's why I did it, and I said, I'm asking you to support it.
But a few years ago, it actually was the Board of Selectmen who pushed it forward, and it went to town meeting, and it was voted down, and there was substantial.
Town will have a chance to vote it down again.
So here's my take. I know I didn't mean to interrupt you,
That's
Kevin.
okay. No, go, please.
I am not going to support it, no matter what gets discussed. And I'm going to tell you, you know, my concern this year is the 5-year forecast. You know, when you look through that, and it was brought to light last year or the year before by Leon and Barbara, and I got to tell you, that long discussion that we had with them was a huge eye-opener for me, and I'm in finance. So I should have paid more attention to the 5-year forecast. And I'm looking at it, and you see a lot of the costs going up, and, you know, everybody wants something, everybody needs something, no doubt. And it's very hard to allocate that as a TA, for sure. I think that's why the town is deserving of someone who's very good in that position, because that's got to be tough to figure out and prioritize all that stuff, no doubt. But there's not a lot of money to go around. Taxes are really high in this town, and a lot of people are struggling. Even though you might not hear it or see it, or somebody might not tell you, you know, they are. And some of these things, I don't want to be mean or anything and use an inappropriate word, but is it really necessary, the stipend, after going through it a few years ago and the town, you know, overwhelmingly voting it down? If that's what people want to do again for town meeting, fine. I mean, I'm still not going to vote for it, but I just urge everyone, especially the committee, to look at some of these one-off charges or new expenses and consider the budget in the next couple of years, because it's very soon we're going to be in the red. And Barbara even spoke at Saturday that she had a hard time with it at one point. That's my concern.
Every year, you can always have a challenge to the budget. I still think you have to consider this, because I think you have good people working for your community. I think
But when you look
it's
at,
not a large amount of funds.
no, it's not a
I know
large
it's- I
amount
know
of money.
it's-
It's $6.5 grand. But then you say, okay, but what about a dispatcher? Or what about a, you know, DPW worker? Or what about, you know, a firefighter? You know, we have to consider the firefighter grant. We have to pay for those new firefighters that we need. And what about these other equipment? I mean, all those things come into play, which is why I'm saying to prioritize must be amazing.
Well, the good news is you only have 5 selectmen, you won't have any more.
Right, I guess in my priority, it's not up there.
I understand that, but I'm just asking the committee to consider it.
I just have a technical point. This is now our salaries. I mean, this is a line item now. This has to have a line and a number associated with it over on the right-hand side. So when you put the book together, just don't fail to do that.
So
This should be
she
technically
updated
line
that.
item number
I
one.
believe she changed that in the file that she sent to Kathy and me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh, did she?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, we do have that file.
Pages, it's all.
Yeah, so there were a couple of changes that she incorporated that she sent the file to us.
It's on here?
Oh.
6250.
Oh, you're talking over here, yes, okay.
Do we, I'm sorry, I just have one. Do we know, she made note that there was a $7,000 or so
where was it?
expense that was in the, you know, that took away from the $89,000, we're just below the levy limit? Is this it?
No.
Because it
I-
wasn't
I don't
included?
remember right offhand
What's the
where it
question?
was.
I might know the answer.
Oh, right, in the front of the book, it tells us right now, you know, we used to be like $500,000 to $1 million below our levy limit. And now with this budget, we're only $89,000 below our levy limit. And she made mention that that's not really true. It's like 81,900 or something like that.
I think I wrote
Because
it
there's
down.
another expense that's been added, and I thought maybe this is what she was talking
No,
about.
I put that in at the beginning.
Okay.
No, that wasn't it. It was,
She said that was Tuesday night, she said.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
like another 7,000.
Was it something in-
So it lowered the number down, and I thought maybe that was
No,
this.
this was, no, this was already, this was in since
Okay.
day one.
I
No,
want to, I
trying to think
thought it
was-
might have been unclassified, but I don't
think she said
remember.
what it
No,
was.
No, she hadn't, and I didn't
Yeah,
know.
Say what
if-
it
She did tell me, it's a different item, I can't,
Okay.
it escapes me, but it wasn't this.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know. No, it wasn't that, though, no.
And it
Larry.
was DPW perhaps, or dispatch, was either police or DPW, someplace, the 7,000.
I don't know.
A few thoughts. I would not question the motivation of anyone who would advocate for this, or were it to pass, who would take the money as a result. And that's like the rug, and now the furniture that goes on the rug. First, we just spent 40 minutes about quality of work tied to compensation. The proposal would have the world's worst selectmen automatically get paid, and that money would be reported as ordinary income, as a salary or as a wage. Also, if I understand the proposal, it is tied to two things, or at least two things mainly. One is what goes on in other communities. I dare say we ought not let other communities make our budget decisions. We live with our consequences. Other communities do not. Two things. So the second is that it's important to recognize the long hours and the out-of-pocket expenditures. Let's keep in mind that the selectmen competed to be the victors in order to spend out-of-pocket and put in long hours. When they win, that's what they get to do. Nobody held a gun to any of their heads and said, you gotta run. They are true volunteers in public service. As to what other towns do, Sturbridge does look at what other towns do, the 10-town comparison surveys. There, the basis of the surveys is invariably empirical, objective data, standard statistical area comparisons, number of road miles, things that are not debatable. They exist on their own in the world, as distinct from subjectivity, opinion, sentimentality. Also, further to the point made earlier about what the finance director said on the Saturday annual meeting between the selectmen and the finance committee, this opens the door to weakening the now enviable bond rating of the town, which is AA+ stable outlook, while we're bumping up just $80,000+ from the tax levy limit. And the symbolism of giving a superb selectman and a lousy selectman money that they evidently haven't asked for, whether they earn it or not, at the same time that Standard & Poor's is going to wonder why. You haven't done it before in recent years. Both the Sturbridge representatives, that is all of them, on the one hand, to Tantascwa denied receiving the money. They wouldn't take it, refused it. Likewise, the other hand, the Sturbridge School Committee, Planning Board, others. Sturbridge, I believe, is still one of only 5 towns and cities in the Commonwealth that has a split ZBA, split partly elected, partly appointed. Well, if 346 others do it differently from the way we do, by the reasoning of this proposal, we should consider changing the way we do things, just because. The reason would be, because I don't think that that carries enough weight. So I cannot agree that the time has come to pay selectmen or any other volunteers in public service, because doing so is a nice thing in other communities. When we're approaching the tax levy limit, it's around the corner, it jeopardizes in part, with other factors, our bond rating. And the selectmen vied to be able to spend all that time. And we're going to reward them because they won and are doing what they want to do. Good selectmen, bad selectmen. With the backdrop of people who are being paid, well, okay, and we're going to just, the amount of money is immaterial. It's the principle underlying. It could be a symbolic 1 penny. Why? Thank you for hearing me out.
Welcome, Kevin.
I have a follow-up question, because one of the reasons this went away in the town of Sturbridge at 1.2 is because people who got a stipend for elected positions, it was a certain amount of years. If you had that position and you collected the stipend, you automatically became eligible for a town pension. Is that still there? So, is that good?
You have to have a full-time position become eligible for.
Okay, at one point, I know there was a selectman in past history who served quite a long number of times as a selectman in the town of Sturbridge, just collecting the stipend, and he went on to another position in another town for 3 years, and now he got the full pension from both that town and us.
Not just as a, you would have to be a full-time position. You have to work for the
But you're
community.
right, it was that way, and you're right as to what it is now.
It's changed, okay.
It has changed.
Also, health insurance too is an issue, but
Yes.
you don't have to do the health insurance now.
But not that long ago, the selectmen locked arms because they knew if they could just work the clock,
Right.
they'd be over the hump if they lived to age 100. And one of the defenses they made, a selectman said, well, you know, I have to stop at Burger King when I'm out representing the town. That was the rationale, or rationalization. But those days are over for that kind of reason.
When was the last time this was voted on at town meeting?
I think it was at 13 or 14, because I was on that.
Yeah, I was still
stipends.
on the
on
committee, too.
I was pretty new to this committee, and I was our rep to the stipend study committee. So,
Yeah, that's right, it was a stipend study committee,
yeah, which was actually appointed by the moderator. It was a moderator committee.
I remember watching the meetings
I
on
think it was-
television. It was initiated by one of the members of the Board of
Yeah,
Selectmen.
I think it was in 14, but I'm not positive, yeah. And that extra 7,500, because I wrote so well, it looks like typing. It was for the OPEB study, 7,500 in the
Oh, yes, the
unclassified.
OPEB,
Totally
Yes.
spotted it.
that was it.
I should have written it in
So the
blue.
OPEB study is now part of the budget. Sometimes we used to do it as a warrant article, so, okay.
No, she just forgot it, so.
That's perfect.
She
She
forgot,
did.
she forgot it.
Yeah, she
That was
forgot
what
it.
it was, OPEB.
Yeah,
Great, thank you.
we did see it. I do have a question on some of the other parts of this Board of Selectmen. Why are there no dues anymore? There was $13.50 for it, now it's zero.
It should be. Unless they moved it to the town administrator's budget. Was it in last year's?
No, well, in 2019, there was 1,350, and now it's zero.
Well, the town administrator's budget went from 1,600 to 3,000 this year.
We might have been shifted,
Oh,
probably
you might
shifted
have,
it.
oh,
You think she
Right.
shifted it?
She may have. Because there are dues.
Right, no, I know. I had that written down, too. I didn't hear her, I didn't see anything on
yeah,
the meeting on Saturday about it.
it could go up. Yeah, that might be.
You'll note that under the TA budget, under other charges, under dues, it moves from 1,600 to 3,000.
Right.
But perhaps that's it.
That's what we're thinking up there.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Well, that answers that question, then. Okay. Any other questions on the BOS?
bells are ringing, we gotta do something.
Anybody, Larry, is this your department?
Yes.
We'll put it on you to make the motion.
Sure. I move the Finance Committee recommend to the 2019 annual town meeting for the Board of Selectmen budget, the total of $2,900 under 11222, reflective of line numbers 1 and 2.
Second.
So basically, you took away the stipends without doing the math?
If you subtract 6250 from the
From
number
9150?
proposed, it's 2,900.
Okay, just want to make sure. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That's 8-1. So that's Jim. Okay. I think that's all we have for you, Ted.
I can,
Thank you.
And thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you for all your efforts, too, on
Yep,
behalf
thank
of
you,
the town.
Yes, for all your
Thank you.
hard work here.
thank you, too, for the community, because you work hard, too.
Oh, are we talking stipend?
It's against the law.
I know that.
If I come back another time, I'll...
No, I know, we're the ones who can never get paid, ever, and shouldn't be.
That's right. So enjoy your retirement once again.
I'll probably stay and just listen to that.
Oh, okay.
We only have one more department, right?
Yes.
Yeah, just Annie.
Annie, yeah. Well, at least on the budget, or on the agenda. But now I put another item in case we want to talk about other budgets. You notice it?
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah.
No, it's good. You know, it's had flexibility.
Well, I never really meant to narrow it, but then I could see how people could read it that we're just talking about those budgets. So anyway, hi, Annie. Hello, this is recreation budget. Let's see where we are,
Page 37.
Page 37. And who has rec? You have rec, right?
So, we haven't had an opportunity to meet yet, but I'm sure we will, because we're gonna have to talk about warrant articles down the road.
Yep, so we met with the senior center, again last week, so I'm hoping within the next 2 weeks, we'll have a little bit more, of a detailed proposal.
But I think we're gonna talk about the betterment articles, but first one, I think we should probably address the
Right.
budget first.
Yes. And then, yeah, there are quite a few.
One thing I looked at here, and I'd just like to point out, because I did talk to Andy briefly last week, and I went through this, and I think we all know this from Saturday's meeting, that your hours have been increased from 25 to 30. Is that what,
Yeah, the original request came from the Recreation Committee, and,
35.
yeah, they were looking to do a full-time salaried position. They made the motion, to request that back in December. Speaking with Barbara, we did, I guess, settle on those 5 hours, which is a help to the department, but it's mainly a help to keep the department afloat in terms of new programs, in like well-thought-out, detailed programs that we can have annually. We would need the additional hours.
But there's two components to the, just for sake of clarity, if you look at the increase in Annie's salary compared to where it was, there's two components of that. One of the components is merit, but the other component is just the fact that 5 hours have been added on, so you can't take the percentage increase as a full value of what the increase is.
Well, you mean the
Because-
step in COLA?
No, not just that. If you have to look at the fact that her hours have been increased.
Oh, right,
too. So
right.
if you say her salary's gone up X%, it's gone up X%, but only a portion of that percent was based on a wage increase. The rest of it was based on the fact that her hours have been.
Oh, right,
increased.
right.
So I just,
Well, you used the
I'm
word,
pointing out the
you
obvious.
used the word merit, and I think you meant steps,
I meant,
I hope.
I meant step, yeah. okay. So
I would hope she's eligible for a merit if we're
Well,
funding
yeah,
it.
but that wouldn't be in that base salary, though.
So I wasn't here on Tuesday, but was there discussion on leaving the salaries like we usually do until it's determined how much of an increase to give?
No, we voted them.
You did
No, we are
vote.
voting them,
What did you vote?
The 3 plus whatever
the
the step
3%, and then the
increases are.
steps.
You did?
Yeah.
Huh.
And I think part of the argument for that, Joni, is
Well,
it's already in the contracts for the bargaining groups.
Yeah, so what?
The equity issue is there.
Well,
You're gonna, give a less increase.
It doesn't
to
matter
people
what I
just
say
they
because you
don't
guys
have-
voted it,
I
but
know,
I do
going-
disagree with
Just voted
it.
on some, we didn't vote on all of them yet, but if you're gonna say, well, you're in a bargaining group, so you're gonna get 3%.
No.
You're not, you're only gonna
So-
get 2.
no,
That
no.
can be, cause you.
I understand the workers, I really do. I don't, but I do think the department heads should be looked at differently. That's just my own opinion, but. Anyway. I guess the question that I had is moot, since you guys voted the 3%.
For the ones we voted on so far.
For the one we
No,
voted
but-
on, yes.
But did you, so the past few years, we've always set aside the department head salaries to determine, or to discuss the
No,
COLA
I-
increase.
I thought it was only last year that we actually did that.
Okay, but you guys decided not to, the committee
Right.
decided not to do
Yeah,
that
we did
this
talk
year.
about doing that,
Okay.
yeah.
I think last year there was so much
It was-
changing
Right.
that nobody was quite.
Oh, and with the steps and all that,
Yeah.
it was in flux, so, no, I don't remember that we did that besides last year, holding out the salaries. I thought we
We
always,
voted one at a time, as we did them.
in prior years, do that.
So, Shona, there was discussion about some things to
Yeah.
hold, selectmen haven't voted this, make sure we understand where they want to go before we vote. And then I think the majority came around to, we're running this independently from the selectmen, and and they wanted to just vote what they felt was appropriate and that should be recommended. And if people needed to come back later and change certain line items because, their thoughts changed or something else, there's the opportunity to come back and relook at things that had gotten voted.
Okay.
So back to the rec budget here. Annie's been sitting very patiently
Yes.
here. So questions about that? Well, first of all, the increase, does anybody have any questions or concerns about the increase in the hours from, I think it's 25 to 30?
Correct.
I mean, the only person who could answer that would be, because you're the person who recommended that. So you saw the need.
But there was a request from the rec committee.
Well, the rec committees was higher.
Yeah, they
Yes,
want
oh, I know,
35 hours.
I know.
He asked for everything. I felt that would be a good start.
But it has, I just would like to note that it has been the same request since 2011 for the increase to full-time. So it has been a consistent request. But I'm hoping that, with 5 hours, it's easy to add a bus trip in, but I can't form a functioning rec activity that we can continue every year. I'm hoping I can make some growth within the 5 hours that thoroughly proves the need for the full-time. However, we all, myself and the committee, think that the need for the full-time is already there, and it's rather apparent.
Question I had on the salaries for summer rec, is that increase strictly based on the fact that we have a higher minimum wage, so that we had to adjust them
Correct.
from 19 to 20, or?
Yeah. So we had to go up on minimum wage, and then that also makes us go up on our lifeguards as well, because they pay so much for the course. Our lifeguards are still, I reached out to other departments to do a comparison, and we still have by far the lowest paid lifeguards. But that has to go up when minimum wage goes up, just because they pay about $4.50 for the certification.
How many summer employees are there?
10.
10? Have you seen a decrease in the number of kids going? I only ask that because the population of the school is somewhat down, the elementary school, which is
Yeah.
the age you would be attracting.
So that's kind of tricky to answer because we see it's always a consistent shift where for a couple years we'll have really high number of younger kids. The program is targeted from 7 to 14-year-olds, but most, 12 to 14, that's the lowest category. So when those kids start to get older, they stop coming as much, and we might have lower numbers for a year or two until the next increase comes in. I believe 2 years ago we were at 90. Last year we were at 83. When we were at 90, that included 30 new families to the town. So we haven't had a decrease. We've been steadily increasing probably for the past 6 or 7 years. There was at one point, quite some time ago, where the numbers were around 130.
Oh, oh.
That was before I even worked there, so a while ago now.
Interesting. Other questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah,
Why
go
was there
ahead.
longevity in 2018 and there was no longer longevity?
'Cause that was probably Lynn.
Was that
Probably Lynn.
Was that because of Lynn?
Probably, yeah, because she was there a long time.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah,
Between the two, she had
Mm.
worked in two different departments.
right, yeah, I would think that was her.
Is it town clerk?
Hmm?
Town clerk?
Right, she was in that position.
I would assume that's true.
And she was there for a long time, like, at least 15 or, at least 15, 16 years?
16
Okay.
years, yeah.
And most of what's under purchase and services is just like price increases from vendors.
Yep, we don't have any changes, we don't have any new requests, it's just a slight increase, and I think it was 5 compartments, and that's just because our invoices are going up a little bit as well.
And supplies is unchanged.
Slight increase in the porta potties. Are those the ones down at the town barn?
The
What are
increase
those?
is due to usage on the town common, especially with the farmer's market, and now we have sports teams that consistently practice on the town common. The usage went from end of August to early November last year.
Okay.
So you weren't as strong on the extra 5 hours and what you can do with it, but your overall theme here is, this is a position where there are many programs that are being offered out there. They're widely used. There's requests for additional programs that we have the opportunity, time and opportunity to be able to form those programs and keep them going. And that's what you're trying to continue this year and use the extra hours for, is add additional programs where you can within that timeframe.
Yes, that would be a part of it, but another part is with our sports teams growing, and a couple of things that have changed over the years. I need the extra hours to keep the office afloat as to where it is now. The rec department's responsible for all queries for the sport leagues, so right now I have hundreds of queries to go through, and that's something that's changed over the years. I know the tree lighting changed quite some time ago, but the hours were never reflected when the tree lighting was taken on by the department. Another thing that I think has been really great is the adult sport programs that we run at the high school from October to April. Those numbers have almost doubled in the past 2 years. So it's just registrations and it's basic office duties that are increasing. Whenever I am in there with my 24 hours, I have constant phone calls, I have constant foot traffic. So I just want to keep doing a strong job of keeping the office afloat while we have all of these like increasing numbers, but also be able to implement. I had provided originally a whole packet of ideas of programs that were revenue generating and then non-revenue generating as well. But there's certainly a lot that we can do. And also what's changed in the past 2 years is when the Special Events Committee was formed, that was supposed to have a rec committee member. Instead, the rec chose to have me as a representative as well. So I'm now the chair of the Special Events Committee, and that takes up time for monthly meetings as well as events. We had the farmer's market underway, town bonfire, the road race. We have events coming up this year. So the special events ended up taking, I don't know, more of a toll on the department than we originally perceived, but it's a great thing at the same time.
I'm all set.
Other questions?
So are you here to ask us to increase that amount, or are you gonna settle with the 30 hours?
I think that I have a strong argument to ask for the increase, but at the same time, I understand that it's been an ongoing, I don't know if problem's the right word. I wish that the chair was here or anyone from the committee, if they did choose to make that argument, because it was originally motioned in. I think that the argument would be strongest from the committee, showing the benefits of it to the department. But I do.
Well, let me take her off the hook. I think she's saying that she can justify in her mind full-time hours. The committee thinks that full-time hours are needed and appropriate. That's why they made the recommendation. The town administrator evaluating that has come up with extra hours, but not necessarily all they asked. And I think it comes back to the finance committee to decide which path it wants to recommend here as part of that independent, non-political review that, folks talked about on Tuesday evening.
Really latched on to that, huh?
Well, I would point out that it has seemed to run with no decrease in services or complaints at 30 hours per week over the last 5 years,
Well, it's 25 hours.
or 25 hours, or whatever
Yeah.
it was.
Right, in fact, Lynn was doing both, so it was kind of restrictive for her to do anything additional because she hit her 40-hour
Right, she couldn't go more
limitation
than.
anyway. I've never heard of any need for additional hours that you say. I've never heard that.
It's been submitted almost yearly, and I have a lot of the same paperwork that was submitted.
But
I
it couldn't
didn't-
be because she couldn't go over the 40 hours, is what I'm saying. So it couldn't be.
Well, and maybe it was before she took on the Board of Health role. I don't know
When
when
Lynn
that
was
was.
the director.
Because she had 2 positions and her total
Correct.
hours
Right.
already
Correct.
exceeded that, she couldn't go any further.
Right.
You know, you can
Correct.
understand.
So that's why I don't recall ever
So
seeing
it couldn't
it.
happen with her because of that situation.
Correct.
I understand.
Right. So perhaps the need was masked, but I never heard of that.
So I guess, Kevin, your point goes to, all departments ask for a level-funded budget, but there are certain ones, clearly rec in front of us now. Library mentioned Saturday, I'm sure I'll bring it up again. They've got a successful set of programs. They run 300 programs a year. They'd like more hours because they'd like to increase the number of programs they're running because there seems to be a demand over there for expanded services, not level services. So the question is, are we happy with the level of service and telling folks who are looking for more, we're unable or unwilling to fund some additional hours to address things that appear to be in demand? Or do we say, there are 1 or 2 areas maybe this year where we do want to add, increase the level of service because there's a high demand and high use for those services, and that seems to be the question in front of us here, at least
It's a fair
relative
question.
to
I
recreation.
guess, in my mind, when I always conceptualize, like you said, we take a look at the pie and how we divide it up. The meeting the other night, there were additional demands also said that were coming along the way, like, I think another dispatcher or something coming from the police department.
Conservation Commission is looking for more.
Conservation field, right. So, yes.
Money.
The discussion on Saturday was, from the police department, still feeling stress on dispatches. It'd be nice if they had 10 full-times instead of 6. And, it's like, well, let us understand what's going on there. That's where that pressure is coming from, right? So,
Yeah, no, I'm just, you have $80,000 to play with, and so now it's a matter of weighing all these different things and what's more important. And like I was going, I have a very strong conceptualization in my mind of what the purpose of local government is, and what should be hierarchy of needs for local government. And I can tell you, things like recreation are right at the bottom of those needs. Things like,
It's enumerated somewhere in our books.
is it, so
Hierarchy.
there's things like, public safety,
Yes.
public health, education, things that, and then it works its way right down to what is not needed but nice to have. And in recreation is one of those things that are nice to have. They do a great job. You have great programs. But if it was something.
ones are at the top.
The essential ones are at the
Essential ones
top, and you work your way down. And if you had to give up recreation to get you saw in here, I saw there's a SAFER grant for 4 extra policemen. When that grant ends.
No, fire.
I'm sorry, fire.
Fire.
So what happens in 3 years when that grant ends? We take on all of those salaries
Exactly.
for
Right, we
4 additional people. You have to think long-term like
They're
that.
paying that now. When we
exactly,
went
goes
into
back to
SAFER
my
grant
point,
last year, it fades off over 3 years, so we're starting to pick up part of that
And
cost this year.
that just gets worse, and to go to Joni's point with the 5-year plan, and we're going to hit, you don't want to end up going to the town for a Prop 2.5 override for essential services, because it's very difficult to get a 2.5 override. And we really don't want to be in that position, and we don't want to eat away any of the excess capacity we've spent almost 2 decades building up,
This
trying,
rating, yeah.
trying to, have that rainy day fund so that we can handle unexpected events, because nowadays everything's expensive.
What would the actual delta be to go to the full-time position? Can
I
anybody
guess
give
it's
me
right here, $7,000.
6550, right? I think
6760.
Yeah, it's in the board.
That's just for the
It's
additional
a delta
5
between what was
hours.
asked and what was there.
Because
Now,
full-time benefits.
That's for the
but
5
now,
hours.
You have to
Just for
worry
5,
about,
right.
if you go to 35, is she classified as a full-time employee, and now you have to put in health benefits and all that type of...
I thought she had,
Sorry?
yeah.
Anything over 19 hours, you get benefits.
You do? Okay, thank you.
20 hours.
I'd just like to say that I understand the hierarchy of public safety and recreation down low, but I don't think we should look at it in a bubble, because a town without recreation can make public safety a bigger problem. I think it has to be looked at globally. We certainly don't want to eliminate these activities for families, for our kids. If we don't have these kinds of things, what are they going to do? They're going to run around on the streets. So I don't think it should be ignored, the value that recreation brings to a town, especially our community. I think that, we have a very family-oriented community. So, I just don't think looking at it as just a bubble of money is beneficial to our public.
I just want to add, I didn't want to hear a short time, but I do understand that recreation is very popular in this community. And, they're trying to get fields, they're trying to do extra things. And we have a lot of problems with trying to get fields partly because of money, but your community, it seems to me, has a lot of emphasis towards recreation and children. We have a number of children here.
And adult programs,
And
too.
adult programs, and I think, you're correct. If you have to reduce, the place I would go first is probably recreation. But at this point in time, you're really not in fear of going bust. You are a well-run community. There's going to be avenues of conversation coming forward. You're always going to have a challenge. I just think this community could look at recreation as a little higher than just the lowest echelon, and consider programs that people do want to have, and consider adding the hours. That's all.
Because it benefits, it benefits on a social and emotional level, which translates into people not being on the streets.
Well, and also, when people are looking to move somewhere, they do look at quality of life, and certainly having that type of program, education is certainly up there, but then I think they do look at what's there to do in town.
I'm not advocating getting rid of it.
I know, but, to say it's at the bottom is maybe a little harsh, because I think, if you're attracting families here, okay, what's the schools, you're looking at that, but then you also look around, okay, what is there to do here? You got Old Sturbridge Village, okay, you go there
Once, twice.
every other month or whatever. Well, I don't know, I used to go there all the time to walk with the kids, because it was free, but we didn't have trails then. Now there's, trails, and there's, a lot of, the organized activities, so you do look at that.
Are the
People look at that.
recreation responsible for the trails? or is
No,
that
no,
still
no.
conservation?
No, but I'm just saying that is,
There's a value.
that can be an attraction
There-
of
it was
people
mentioned-
from town.
It was mentioned on potential areas to grow is to work more closely with the trails.
Well, that's true. You could have, I don't know, a midnight walk or something that, I think they've done, maybe the
They already
Trails
do that.
Committee
The
has,
Trails
but
Committee
it's
does
certainly
it.
not
Yeah.
unheard of for the Rec Committee to do something like that either, though, or in conjunction.
As a newer resident, I was a bit surprised to learn we don't have a full-time rec, considering how much the town promotes outdoor, activities and conservation and all that. I would have thought that would go hand in hand. And also, I'd like to point out that the amount of the stipend that we were considering is nearly the same amount of the increase that this would require. So if there's an argument to be made where the money could be put somewhere else, I'd say this is a perfect example.
So a couple things. Actually, I'm going to ask one question, but to that point. So I understand, and I totally looked at that as well. But I got to tell you, looking at, and I don't think anyone means that the recreation department is the lowest man, like saying, like that is harsh. But from a priority perspective, even in the budget, the recreation was the last. So I think from that perspective, that's what everyone's talking about, being the lowest. I don't think they look at you as the bottom of the bucket.
I understand,
Okay, so I want to clarify that. But if you looked at it, and I had the police budget for a couple of years now, and I had the fire budget, there are concerns there. And there's not a lot of money to go around in the next couple of years if we keep on spending. I don't want to say haphazardly, because I don't think we do. I think Barbara does a great job of helping with the prioritizing. But I think there's a need elsewhere. And if you're looking at $6,000 here and $6,000 there, that's $12,000. That could be a partial, full, one of those firefighters, the amount of money that we'll be contributing, because that SAFER grant goes down. It was 100%, now it's 50%, and then it'll be 25%, and then it'll be, boom, 100% we have to pay for. So I can't imagine us getting rid of 4 firefighters, but in 1 year's time, we have to find salaries for 4 firefighters. And I'm not picking on you, Jared, it's just because you made that comment. I wanted to say that. But I will ask you one thing when you were talking about the need, and no doubt there's a need. I didn't hear you say in your discussion that I heard you say, I should say, that you were doing the status quo to keep it afloat. So these additional hours were to keep the department afloat. I didn't hear anything about an increase in this and an increase in that and an increase in that. So do you have any increasing value that's, programs or whatever?
Yep, so in the
planned?
packet provided, there's 2 different sections. That's revenue, creating streams, and then non-revenue. But the 5 hours are most important because, as I said before, all of our numbers are going up. So my Corys are going from 100 to 150 volunteers and coaches in towns to 300 plus. All of our registrations are much higher. Every day or every week, I'm constantly having to go over my hours. I've had to speak with Barbara about it before. So with all of our programs increasing, it's a wonderful thing. But to have one person in an office and one person in charge of 10 seasonal staff, 3 volunteers, 1 intern, it gets to be a bit much. And I love seeing our programs grow. I obviously have a sense of dedication to the town. But it's only a matter of time before everything gets challenging where we're at now. Some instant things, if you're looking for like instant activities that we can do within the 5 hours, I'd love to do a bus trip to Newport in August, and we can just start with programs like that. Right now, I'm working with an intern to develop a summer outdoor rec league for boys 14 to 19. That'll be a competitive tournament style. And if I didn't have the help that I have right now, that's something that we'd probably be pushing off to next year because it's been on my goals for the past 2 years. But it's one person in the department, it's quite a bit.
So then the volume has increased on the current curriculum, is what you're saying. There hasn't really been an increase, or I should say an additional program that warrants the additional 5 hours.
She just mentioned 2.
Well, those are potential, she was saying, right?
Right, but without the 5 hours, you're not going to have the time to address.
No, because already the special events committee and the amount of hours that I have to dedicate being the representative on that.
So are you saying if you don't get the 5 hours, you won't, the bus trip and the other idea are
I
at
wouldn't be
risk?
able to add one in August. If there wasn't any hour increase, I'd stay where we're at right now. Any additional quarries.
Sorry, what do you say additional queries? What are you referring to?
Criminal record checks.
Oh, okay, okay.
So the rec department's responsible for all of the leagues. Yep. Any volunteers, coaches, they all goes through the rec department now. So without any additional hours, there wouldn't be any additional programs. I wouldn't be able to enhance any programs.
I think the question can be posed very simply. With these additional 5 hours, is there some time that would be dedicated to adding some new things?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I just didn't know what you meant.
But I heard you say that there's an increase in the people that are participating in the adult.
Yes.
What's the contest going to be, like basketball, the summer event?
So the summer, we're still working on the details, and right now we just completed a survey because we're trying to find the best way to start it as a tournament style and have it successful enough that people will want to join next year. In the past, when we've done outdoor rec leagues, it's a pickup style, and those tend to fail pretty early on in the season. Less and less people show. What we're looking to do is like a 4v4. I think we figured out the ideal situation would be 4 teams, which would bring us to around 40 people enrolled. Age group that we're targeting right now, but it's not limited to, would be 14 to 19-year-olds because we actually had members from the high school reach out to the department looking for the league. And that would probably be about a 6-week program during the summer, the 7th week being the tournament.
Didn't you mention a program at night for adults?
So we have from October to April, and that's at the high school. Wednesday nights is co-ed volleyball and men's basketball. Monday night is just competitive volleyball. Competitive volleyball is the only number that stays low. We're actually into the 20s this year. In the past, it's only been about 11. It's the same dedicated group that keeps coming back. But in terms of the co-ed volleyball and the men's basketball, that's where we see our highest numbers.
Are there fees associated with participation with the adult leagues?
It's a one-time registration fee, and that goes into the revolving.
Does it cover the cost?
Yeah, it is. I believe it's $10 Sturbridge residents, $20 non-Sturbridge residents.
But it covers all the costs for renting the facility and your expenses. Does it cover all your?
It covers our expenses, yep. We don't pay for the facility rental from the high school, so we are able to use the Mondays and Wednesdays night at no cost, but we do provide the basketball and volleyballs. It was very eye-opening how much volleyballs cost, to say the least. But it does cover our expenses.
Do you ever get requests that are for recreation programs that aren't sports related? Because I have heard people say they think there's too much emphasis on sports.
The biggest request that I get, and I have a phone call almost weekly about it, is a dog park. And that's been consistent in the 3 year. I'm going on my 3rd year here, so that's been very consistent. I've had people ask everything from, are we bringing first night on the town common back, which is something I'm not familiar with, but I have read into. I get a lot of calls that would probably be more appropriate for the Trails Committee, but I help them out the best that I can. But it's people looking for where can they go, they're visiting town, as much as they're on this road, how can they bike to Westville? A lot of people seem to be looking for, Lynn used to have the walking group, and now that's become informally their own group, and they seem to do really well, but I refer a lot of people. But we have a general interest. Something that I've noticed as well is when people have been moving to the town, they've actually been coming into the town hall. I'm assuming they go to each department, but they've asked just for a general overview of what we have. And I have a very makeshift newsletter. It's a goal for this year to make a formalized one. But I have noticed with more people coming to town, they're actively looking to see what recreation is offered. And my first year here, I didn't have that at all.
Yes, Larry.
I am puzzled. It seems like if there's a distinction, it's between what might be thought of as tangible and intangible. The Finance Committee called repeatedly, finally successfully, for a facilities manager and for IT. That might be thought of as tangible. And the subject at hand might be thought of as intangible because it's much closer to an experience.
Right.
And the IT and the facilities work is about the operation of the municipality. But recreation is about the life of the same municipality. On the one hand, we pressed for something. Now, we seem to be questioning. And that's what's puzzling to me. Why did we insist in one case and sort of doubt in another case? When, you know, in the same way that all lines meet at the horizon, we're really only talking about one thing, which is the life of the community. And I think your work, your work, and that of your colleagues, and your board is excellently well done. And the work you do is indispensable to living here.
Thank you.
And I don't see how that's even debatable. I'm puzzled by that, and I think the underlying issue is how to reconcile the competition for fewer and fewer dollars. If we focus on that and solve that, a whole lot else gets automatically taken care of if there is a clear plan that most people can say, yeah, I'm willing to sort of wait my turn and I'll hang my hat on it, and we just plan our work and work our plan. It seems to me that's the way to approach this.
I don't disagree with what you're stating, but do we have any sense, again, I wasn't at the Saturday meeting, so I didn't hear all the comments that were made there, what all the things that aren't included in the budget that are going to be coming and requested for? And what that comes to?
In my sense, I don't think there's anything else that's hanging out there that's not already in the budget. The police chief mentioned his concern with the dispatch. He'd like to have 10, not something he's asked for before. He was asked to come up with what would it take to support that. You can do the math pretty quick. A dispatcher, assume they make 50 grand a year, you need 4 of them, that's $200,000. Throw in some benefits, we're talking $250,000. So.
He's talking about a total of $80,000 per individual.
Right. So, do we need 4 more, 2 more, 1 more? We don't know. So there's something just to understand what the issue is there and the cost. It doesn't mean that the town administrator or selectman and/or the finance committee are going to say, yep, we need those and we need them this year and let's put them in the budget. It was just a matter of, that's an area of concern he had. Let's at least get a little bit more information on as we go through the budget cycle.
So
here.
that's where I would hold off on going above and beyond what's here right now until we understood that. Because if Jim is correct, and there's a need that may be stronger, maybe not, for one dispatcher, that's $80,000, that's all our excess.
Each one.
Yeah, just one is you just sucked up our thing to the public. See, what tends to happen, I mean, when we were kind of flush and doing well, this process kind of worked. People would come in and they'd make a recommendation, we would consider it, and almost all the time, we kind of agreed because, Larry makes a good point. The recreation provides good service. And, it would provide better service, arguably, if they had more hours. But, as the pie, that excess part of the pie gets smaller and smaller, now it's time to start really, truly weighing these. And you can't just grant the first one in, because then if you want to grant the third one in, well, you might have to ungrant the first one. It's just, that's why I'm just curious, do we have a sense of what?
Well, so that's why I was wondering, I just assumed, I guess, that the salary line items would be, or at least the ones that were looking for increases would be held. Because
Well, in this,
they do have to be looked at. You do have to wait for all these other departments, wait until fire and police come, and I haven't even spoken to Board of Health yet. So I don't know what their needs are. But, in the hierarchy of prioritizing what has to happen, I don't know.
I mean, right here with the budget that's presented, we do get 5 extra hours with
Right.
nothing
So
else.
nothing that is being
It's
asked
included.
for out inside this book is beyond that.
The 80,000, that's
Right.
correct.
It's something
that's true.
outside of this book that we would be looking at that 80,000 for,
Right.
correct?
Right, yeah,
Yes.
that's correct.
Okay, and we know that the dispatcher is something that has
87.
definitely been brought to our attention as a possibility.
Conservation, Ted and Barbara have already approved 75 more hours, because that's how many hours her
That's for the
administrative
admin.
assistant admin is spending.
Is that in here, though?
It's in
Yes.
here.
It is.
She's spending that time because she has to attend meetings and take minutes, and then she's not in the office during the day, so Becky ends up doing, that job, answering the phone and all that.
That's all in there.
That's in here, that's
That's in
baked in
there
the
already.
cake, yeah.
That's in here. So is, $15,500 from Betterment for a drone. Come on, let's get serious.
Which might be a dispatcher before the day's over, or a piece of
Exactly,
a dispatcher.
exactly. Or a firefighter,
You know,
exactly.
Perhaps to have balance on this, getting back to what Joni was saying, so we hear this side of it, we're gonna hear Becky's side of it, but we also have to hear, Ted will be absent by then, but at least from Barbara, in terms of.
Well, he won't be
what-
absent, he just won't be
He won't,
here.
that's what I'm saying.
He might be,
So it
though.
sounds like
From
he's
Barbara,
skipping out on
What the
us.
rationale was and how we got to where we are with some of these recommendations, because she's gonna be the connection, because Ted'll be laying on the beach in Miami.
Well, basically, I sat down with Barbara when we went through the question, and you said, some of the items I felt in the situation, I think it's better sometimes to try to strengthen what you have rather than hire new people that you may not be able to afford the following year. Because it is expensive once you start doing that. So if you have good people and you're trying to continue with your programs that have a need, to me, that's my first priority. And then if we're able to hire more people, then you go to it.
Philosophically, I'm aligned. It was always better to start off paying overtime,
So that was
add
my
hours,
rationale,
and then hire
with
later.
Barbara. And while I'm still here, that's my rationale.
So Kathy, Andy's been here for 2 hours. It sounds like we have a debate among the committee that we don't necessarily need much more input from Annie on,
Yeah,
but
but we
there's
have-
other items that
she
she
has-
has
she has a
in
number of
other
betterment.
budgets that she could
Items that
Do
she
you
can
want
talk
to, do you
about.
want
maybe
to touch
help us
upon the
understand
betterments?
what
Yes.
she's doing there.
Those minutes.
Okay.
We have
let's
the
go to
betterment
betterments.
warrant in front of us?
Yeah, it's in the book. Betterment board.
I know there's a betterment section in here, but I thought that was the proposals that went towards it.
I just wanted to mention that there has been a slight bit of mission creep in the recreation department. One example is they added a program for pickleball for seniors. And it seems to be getting to be a little quite popular. Last year it was, and I expect the program's going to continue this year. So I just wanted the Finance Committee to know
I have no
that there
idea.
is, in addition to looking forward to additional programs, there has been over the last year some additional activities in the recreation department that didn't exist before.
And that shows in the appendix in the, I think it's 11 pages you supplied of a write-up.
Yeah.
Yes, a lot of that's in there. Absolutely.
So there has been some mission creep.
Yes.
So in case you leave here a little disheartened after, I'm okay with the extra 5 hours. I think we can afford it this year. I think using Larry's thing of the life of the community, people are asking for that service. They expect police, fire, and education. We haven't gotten to the point where, you can go play basketball, but we can't send an ambulance to pick you up if you get injured on it. We're still covering it here. It's a start for now. If we find we're in a bind and we have to pull some things back, we can figure out where to pull them back across the board, not recreation being, the bottom of the list in the first place we cut out of. And, we can cut town hall services if we have to. There's many areas we can take a little bit out of to justify some other positions that we think are critical to the town here. So.
That's the debate, yeah.
Yep.
And Andy, a lot of this stuff you're doing in Betterment is just practical stuff, like the backstop and safety too, extending some of the fences to protect the participants so they don't get a foul ball in the face,
Yes.
and keep it out of the wetland.
And we used Betterment last year to update the fencing on Turner's Field. And so that was also one of my goals last year, to evaluate all of the properties. It's time to enhance what we have. It's been quite some time since
Why don't we
anything
just
was
take
updated.
the-
I
I
heard
thought-
earlier about the cost of a volleyball, the cost of a softball and a baseball
Did
is
I
a
say
lot
that?
more than it used to be.
Sorry, I didn't know, I thought that was Turner's Field. Which field is this that
This
the,
is the softball field. It's one of
Where
the
is
fields
that?
down at Town Barn.
Oh, it is. Oh, it's
Oh.
at the town barn.
they have fences down there?
Oh, yeah.
Just around the perimeter on the wetlands, right?
Yeah, but they have to, or
I
all the
understand
balls
that.
would be going right into the wetlands.
So where is the chain, sorry, where's the chain link going? On the back?
Yeah, there's two different portions. Let me just pull it up.
And that's okay, I was just curious. I thought it was Turner's Field, that's why. I've been to it, I just didn't know if it, when she mentioned that, I was puzzled as if she was going to
Are
do the
are
rest
we
of it.
doing the
That's what-
betterment thing, or are we doing recreation?
We're looking at the recreation items in the betterment.
For recreation, just to explain them.
Just, we won't vote on those tonight, but just to get an explanation.
Well, I mean, it's not the section in the back of the book called betterment.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
Your recreation
That's what we're
has a
talking
list of things they're looking to fund through the betterment.
Oh, I see where you're going now.
Right,
Okay, I thought you were
right.
talking about the whole
Yeah,
article.
She can tell us.
Oh, no, no,
We're
no, no,
voting.
not yet.
So, then I do have a question. I'm not sure if you're the person who can answer this. Special events overtime. Who
knew you were gonna
controls, I guess, there was a special event last time, in town last year, and the organizers of the event were presented with a $6,600 bill for police overtime. And I would have thought this was the perfect place for that $6,600, but no. And then they were hit up with, okay, well, we can get volunteer state police efforts and volunteer police efforts from the other towns to come in and cover the manpower needs that you say you need. And they were told, no, that can't happen. So they had to pay, I think it went down to $6,000. Who controls the money coming out of this? And is this really another part of the police department budget that they've already got allocated for part of their normal every year annual operations instead of actually being used for a special event that comes forward to the town?
That question would best be directed probably to Kevin, who's the economic development director. He's the head of the special events. But it was, I believe, last year Leon had put in for $5,000 through Betterment to be used for special events, and we had used up our entire allocation on the police detail. That's been the biggest issue that special events has seen so far. And we face that with our town bonfire in April.
Right, so I would direct that question to the police chief and fire
Last
chief
page
when I
of
come in. I know when I met with the fire chief yesterday, we were talking about this, and the way I understand him describing it, I don't know what event you were referring to, but this special event, the way he described what he was covering there were for the town-sponsored special events. So the tree lighting, the Horribles Parade, a couple of those town-sponsored special events, not an independent nonprofit organization or some organization other than the town coming in and holding a special event within the community with any police and fire details, in order to support that.
Interesting.
That would be the 11 weeks of the concerts on the Common too. We have a police detail, just to add into with the tree lighting.
But see,
and other events.
that's not like a special event. That's an annual series of events. It should not be coming out of something that's called quote-unquote special
Right.
event.
I agree.
That's something that should be budgeted as part of a budget. That's not, okay, I want to come and bring this event to your town that'll bring tens of thousands of people from around here, and then this is what that sounds like this is for, but based on what you're saying, that's not how it's intended to be used, nor is it how it is
That's
used.
the way I recall the conversation.
Keep in mind, though,
we
that
can
there's
ask
two
him.
buckets of money. There is a police special events overtime bucket as well, and it specifies town and tourist-related events. The special events that you're talking about, Kevin, correct me if
But I'm
wrong.
talking about the police department, because that's what I got an earful
Right.
of.
I
there
know,
another
I
one,
got an
too?
earful as well. I'm well aware of that particular scenario.
But then there's funding for special
But
events.
there's funding for special events, and that's what I thought you were referring to.
No, this was
he
the
was
overtime,
definitely
but,
the
I mean, I didn't
overtime.
realize if there's funding for special events, that
There's
also could have been.
5,000.
There
that.
is.
What is
There
that
is.
used for? Do you
That's
know?
what I thought you were questioning.
The 5,000?
Yeah.
Well, Special Events Committee had a betterment request, and that was to be used for special events.
But such as what?
We had last year a farmer's market, a road race, and a bonfire.
Oh.
So this must be Kevin's bucket, to your point. Talk to Kevin about
Well, there is a special events committee.
Yeah, and I think it rolls up under STA, does it not?
No,
Yeah.
my thing was specifically about the police overtime part
I
of it.
hear you
And
on
it
that.
says,
Yeah, he
special
does.
events overtime, particularly here, coming out of betterment, which is supposed to be,
Yep.
comes out of tourist and hotel money taxes to begin with.
Yes, it does. And I believe if anyone goes to STA looking for money to fund an event that they want to hold on the common or whatever, that's usually part of the deal. They usually include any kind of additional overtime that might, because I've done it,
Yeah.
so.
Oh. All right, can we get back to to her recreation? So I'll just go down the list. The Cedar Lake water treatment, that is an annual request. Is that up at all, or it's $1,795? Was that up, down from
It's gone
last-
up $45, I believe, in the past
okay.
year.
Okay, then the town concerts, summer concert series, how many does that actually fund? Because don't we fund some, and then you have advertisers or
Yeah,
sponsors
so
or
last
whatever?
year, if you look on the back side of that, Betterment funded 3 last season, and then they also fund the first 3 concerts of this season that all fall in June.
Missing the lake thing.
Do we get sponsors for it?
Oh, down here.
Yeah, there are sponsors.
Yep, so we use everything from, like, the Cultural Council to Sturbridge Orthodontics and Savers Bank.
Doesn't STA sponsor some of the event, the
Yep.
common?
Yeah, I think they do too, yeah.
Too.
Do we get businesses to sponsor some of those?
Yeah, so, well, like
Yeah, you can.
orthodontics did last
Yes,
year, and,
Sturbridge Orthodontics
the
sponsors
bank,
almost
couple banks, I
annually.
think.
Savers Bank sponsors almost annually.
A good target for that.
yes, I guess. All right, so that's a normal one. Decorations for the town common, $3,550. That, I guess that's annual too.
Yes, that didn't go up at all this year. The prior year, it had a $50 increase.
Oh, okay. And so this is the town, so how many softball fields do we have? There's one at Burgess, right?
The town only has one. Everything at Burgess is out of Rex control.
Right, but there is a softball field there, right? Okay. So we
It
have,
sounds like it's at the town barn, right? Where the.
oh, this is the town barn one, I
Yeah.
guess, yes. Okay. Then hydro raking at Cedar Lake, which is new. What exactly is
It's
that?
pulling out the weeds, pretty much.
No.
At the end of last summer, it was wonderful timing for the summer program because it was several days after the program started. Cedar Lake had an issue with the blue-green algae.
Oh, yeah, I think I remember that.
From my thoughts, and as well as speaking with the company, the best bet would to be clear out the cove as much as we can, start off the summer as strong as we can. Hydro raking, we've done it before there, and we seem to do it every 6 to 7 years. This
Is that
has
a
been-
company that comes in?
It's the same company that does the water treatment.
Oh, okay.
Do we draw down Cedar Lake in the
Yep.
winter? We don't, do we?
We do.
Substantially?
I thought we do.
Cedar Lake throws down every year, yep.
But there's always been a problem with the blue-green algae there. I mean, it's-
Especially in the cove.
Especially in that cove area.
Especially in the cove where
Yeah.
it doesn't move.
It's in most of the lakes, it seems.
And this is something that we just do every 6 or 7 years. It's just part of the maintenance of it.
Yeah, it was actually done the last time, I believe I have it in here, it was less than, I can double check with you as well, because I thought it was included in the email from Solitude. It was less than 6 years the last time that we did it, but the cove is really, really bad. You walk into a thick layer of muck, as well as the algae problem, so, from my standpoint.
Water doesn't circulate.
It doesn't move over
Doesn't,
there.
it doesn't move much
Yeah.
over there.
And the couple boats in the cove, we don't see move often either, so.
Okay. Next is the backstop canopy at the softball field. That's a new request. So that's really just a one-time,
One-time replacement, it hasn't been replaced, it hasn't even really been worked on since the fields were built. It seems as though it follows the same theme as Turner's, where all the fencing was built without considering the size of the ball. So softballs can go right through the chain link fencing as well as just not tall enough.
And about $15 a pop right into the swamp.
let's see, is that it for you? Oh, yes.
When did we start taking up, I mean, that used to be funded by the private lake associations. They took care of cleaning up the lakes. When did the town start taking over doing this?
They have to delineate the category.
Interesting, I don't know.
So it's not
I
necessarily
have
the
no
rec
knowledge of
committee,
that.
All right,
the-
for the-
It hasn't come
the
to
category.
recreation.
It says recreation right after it.
No, what those are is
The
that,
category.
Oh,
you have to
okay, I
have the
understand.
categories. You have to show
Okay.
what's spent for beautification,
Just
public safety.
explained
I just
that to
was
me.
telling that.
Oh, okay.
So,
gotcha.
but at the beginning, it says
For trails.
trails, or,
Okay.
well, this is for the slack, but up, the one you were asking about is trails, but it says recreation,
For the
so.
purpose of recreation.
For the
not
purpose.
Not the recreation.
Sometimes we're
department.
easily
I get it.
confused.
Yeah.
You'll be there someday.
Well, I wasn't including myself in that confusion.
I thought I did your thing. I'm sorry.
Anybody have any questions on the betterment request from rec? Okay. All right, anybody have any other questions for Annie?
And there's nothing in the capital program for recreation? No. So while you're figuring that,
I don't think so.
was
no.
last, did we bring an article for lighting at the town fields last year?
More than lighting, it was,
Yeah, so the article for last year was fields, lighting, courts, followed several of the amenities. In the next several weeks, the Recreation Committee will
No,
be asking
nothing
to
in
meet
capital.
with Finance Committee to discuss upcoming plans. But I don't have
Some
a,
development down in the rec area.
yeah, so we're looking at 60 Cedar Street,
Yeah.
which is the existing rec area.
Did we fund lighting last year? I don't have my book and don't
I
remember.
believe it was CPC funded lighting for
right,
Little
CPC
League
did.
last year.
Yeah.
I would just want to
Okay.
confirm that it was CPC.
So it's not recreation,
Pretty sure it was
is
CPC.
recreation following through to get that installed, or is that someone else?
Yeah, so we're in a little bit of a hiccup right now with the transfer of the facilities coordinator. In the past, though, we've always used DPW for this. So now that Butch is, acclimated a bit more, we'll approach him with that. We had been going under works with facilities coordinator, filling out the paperwork for it to go to bid.
CPC was involved in the tennis court
Yes,
rehabilitation.
yep, they put money towards that as well.
All right. Do we want to vote on recreation tonight? I think that's your department.
I have no problem voting on it. I don't know if we want to wait and talk to Barbara.
Well,
What her feelings are. Go ahead and vote on
I
it.
actually wouldn't mind waiting to talk to Barbara, and I don't mean, you guys can, whatever the majority decides to do is fine, but, I still would like to consider at least some of these items separately, some of the increases and whatnot separately, until we've seen all the rest of the other budgets. That's just my take, but whoever wants to make a motion is fine. I'm just not convinced,
I'm prepared to vote, but as I started Tuesday night with, we can talk about these and then just have a discussion in the end when we see them all and vote them later. So Joni and I seem to be aligned on that, but if somebody wants to make a motion, I'm prepared to vote if they do. As I said, I'll support the town administrator recommended budget with the increase in 5 hours. If someone
Well,
made that.
Barbara's here. If she convinces us otherwise, we can always reconsider. So what page is this on?
well, do you want to wait, or do,
It's line items 124th.
128.
because I'm,
Kathy, if you don't mind, while she's still here, one of the things we should know is we usually keep a running list of topics we want to go back and revisit or maybe include in our report. Two things from tonight, I would include the additional 5 hours so we could go back and reconsider it at the end of the process, and if it works, it works. And then also, I would make sure in that little topics for maybe the Finance Committee to consider, I would throw in that warrant article about the specifics about how to set up that pay scale, what we want that consultant to consider, the details, and maybe write something related to
Structure
that.
Yeah.
Just so you don't lose track of those two thoughts, well, and I wanted Andy to hear too, that I'm not against the additional 5, but I want to see the whole picture first before we say yes now, and then, like I said, 3 people later, well, this is actually really important, but we need to give up this, and now we just set up for disappointment.
Well, the point I'll make on this is the recommendation of the town manager and
Right.
the
And the finance director.
Um, We're paying them for their professional treatment of this stuff, so I'm gonna make a motion.
We're here for a reason.
I'm gonna make a motion that we approve lines
But we are independent, as
124 through 128, totaling $92,221
Second.
for the Department of Recreation.
Second.
And just to comment on Larry's thing, I agree, we're independent, we're giving this a review. On the same time, it's the town administrator and board of selectmen that run the town on a day-to-day basis, and this is their plan of how they want to see this town moving forward. And I think our role is to make sure it's reasonable and affordable, but not necessarily to diverge and go in a different direction. If we want to go a different direction, say, no, this is what we think, are the priorities of the town and what should be funded and go this way, well, we probably should be on the selectmen versus the finance committee. So independent review, but not necessarily independent in a different
Well,
direction.
yeah, well, I think actually if we were to go beyond what is recommended, I think that I would want to wait until the end, because maybe there's other things we might want to go, and you do have to consider them all. I mean, if we're only dealing with about $80,000 now, we really need to look at anything extra beyond what's in the budget, I would think separately, or at the end, because it's tight, so. I mean, I don't have any problem voting with what's in the budget, but if we were to go and say, oh, let's throw in those, let's give her the extra 5 hours, I wouldn't want to vote on that now.
You mean beyond
To
the
the
5
30
hours
right.
that's been approved?
Right,
Yeah.
to full-time.
It's not our place to do that without an explanation and a conversation with,
Well, that's true, but I also think that because of the tight budget, I would rather look at everything and consider everything for that, yeah. So, any other comments? All in favor of the budget of 92,221? Opposed? So it's 8-1. Okay. Well, thanks, Annie. You certainly
Your time.
spent a lot of time here.
That's okay.
Keep fighting, man. Give them hell.
Thank you. Have a nice night.
You too.
Thank you.
All right. That's item number 1 we've gotten through.
Is it?
We were on a good roll Tuesday night, we only needed an hour.
I know, right? Well, review of 2020 budgets, if there's any other comments on any other budget at this point, we can, but. you know,
So
after-
we talked about the SAFER, I'm sorry, I would just point out that in the budget memo that it's in the book,
previous one, I didn't, I was.
the first item in the bullets under the outlook
I know.
points out that it's clear. We get, for the first 6 months of the fiscal year, that's July through December, a 75% reimbursement. The second 6 months, January through June, we're down to 35%.
Right.
And then 35 for the first 6 months and nothing after that. So this is a 3-year thing. We're already seeing the increase in the budget. If you look, when we get to the fire chief's budget, this big item in the salary increases is driven by that grant fading out rather quickly there.
Yeah, it doesn't, that's really fast, too, that fade out.
But
That's the thing coming through
I
the
do,
site.
and you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I did think that one of the reasons that we did go for that last year was because there were perhaps some potential retirements down the road that we wouldn't necessarily, not all 4, but that there might be 1 or 2 coming, and that these would, we wouldn't then additionally fill those. Does anybody remember
So-
that, or am I
so the
dreaming
Chief
that?
will
I
tell
don't
us
think
that,
there were that many, and I don't think that was the reason for
There
going
wasn't
for
4,
4.
I'm just saying there might have been, that there were 1 or
There
2.
There was a recent retirement there.
And did they fill it?
I
Then?
believe they did. I don't think he has any vacancies at the moment.
yeah,
but I-
there might be one I think he's
Yeah,
working on.
it might be that one.
Yeah.
Because it was fairly recent.
I believe what he told me was, the grant puts him in a staffing position where he can have 4 full-time employees on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So he's got the coverage. You get a call, 2 people go out, 2 people are available to assist and/or be in a position to handle that other call. Where prior to having that level of, those 4 additional positions, he wasn't able to provide that level of coverage. So it enabled him to get to what I think you would call, I'll use my words, that minimum staffing level that he thinks is needed in the community there.
So, I'm sorry, I just have a question. In the past, the prior fire department chief put a very high value on hiring firefighter paramedics or paramedic firefighters, I forget what the quote is. Is that what this is? Are these just firefighters or are they paramedic firefighters?
So the SAFER grants, I don't mean to jump on you, because I had it, but the SAFER grant is that they will be made permanent, provided, that the town approves the budget, and provided that they get their license.
They
that
have to
move up.
become.
So they have to
paramedics. So if they're
become
not when they're hired, they have to.
EMTs or paramedics?
I
paramedics,
think
the
it was
higher of the
paramedics.
two. And I think Grasso will tell you that he will probably only hire on that same line, like he wants all of them to be paramedics,
Okay.
because it's beneficial, right? But, that said, there's a slight increase
And I seem to
there.
remember a few years ago that became an issue because an EMT can't do what a paramedic can do in
Correct.
an emergency situation, and you don't want to be in the ambulance when you need something. And only a paramedic can do when you got EMTs, because
And my question was related to Mike's point when he says he wants people on, 24 hours a day. And part of the reason why the prior fire chief was doing that is just that, so he had a paramedic firefighter available 24 hours a day. So this would help ease that strain as well.
Right, right.
Anything else on the budget?
Just to give you his numbers, 2,100 calls last year, 81% of those were EMS-related calls, and of the EMS calls, 90% were paramedic-related calls.
Oh.
So,
Oh, it's high.
that was his intent. I think that he'll get there. I remember there was some discussion on a high bar for qualifications that was difficult to fill the positions. I think they lowered the entry level, but still have that end result is you have to be the
Within so
paramedic
many
when you're
years, you have
I
to
think
be.
it's a certain amount of time they have to become the paramedic, yes.
so you're the liaison to the
Yes.
fire chief. Do they have any information in terms of how well, because there's costs associated with that, how well do we collect enough revenue of insurance or whatever to cover the cost of running the service? So they do an ambulance run, two people deliver.
That should be in the 5-year forecast. The revenue for ambulance billing is usually
Yeah,
there.
I think Barbara can explain that. That was another topic that Chief and I talked about. He did indicate that the revenues he takes in is less than the cost of running the department. He also said he's been made very clear to him, you're not a profit-making organization, right? So we're trying to cover our costs for those calls. He's trying to make sure that a lot of the highway calls and whatever, he's making sure he gets insurance collections to cover his costs of providing that coverage. But as a community, we're not necessarily looking to turn a profit on our ambulance. We're trying to make sure we have coverage as part of the overall level of service we provided that people need in here.
The direction I was going.
Okay.
I'm just concerned, are we covering our costs? Because insurance companies are notorious for, you bill this amount, you get paid this amount, and, some of the worst payers are Medicare and Medicaid, the government-funded stuff.
Yeah.
And, unless we put pressure on those organizations to pay a fair and equitable price, we're gonna continue to get 35 cents on the dollar for something that, we should be getting 75 cents on the dollar for. I'm just, and if we don't make noise, nothing's
No,
gonna
we
fix
can
it.
make a lot of noise, but Medicare is only going to pay what's going to pay.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that very well.
But yes, the revenues, he's making sure he's collecting as much revenue as he can in the appropriate places, but it doesn't fully cover the cost of operating the department.
No, I don't even think it's all that close, but if you look at the revenue projections. Anyway. Let's see, we have no reserve fund transfers, we don't have minutes yet. New business. Here's
Oh,
one-
sorry, Kathy, going back to the minutes, so, and I'll talk with Joanne before she leaves. I still have I'll put together what I took for Saturday, but I also have that other meeting that we went to,
The school meeting?
the school meeting. too.
Yeah,
So-
well, that'll be,
So I'm assuming that this week's minutes, when you're done with them, we'll probably vote them next Tuesday. Are we going to try and keep that same?
Yeah, so trying to keep up, yes,
Are we
yes.
doing
I
it
want-
every Tuesday at 6:30? Is
Yes.
that going to be consistent? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and we'll plan on minutes on the Tuesday meetings, is what I just want to confirm. Only because, I was looking for meeting minutes on town website, I think I told Kathy. We're wicked good about it. And I was looking for other stuff from other departments, and
We're wicked.
I couldn't find it. And I want to keep it up. I want to be in compliance.
Oh, yeah, actually, the recommendation of the Attorney General is that you do it within 3 meetings or 30
Yeah.
days, whichever comes first, I guess, or
So are you
responds.
still in new business?
Yes.
Can I make a suggestion then? On Tuesday nights, because I'll always be 5 to 10 minutes late.
Oh, do some
Because
minutes.
6:30, yeah, do the minutes first so I can come in and hear the discussion.
We could do that, yes. Well,
Just put it at the beginning of the agenda, or meeting.
I could do, oh, geez, I have to revise those agendas again. We'll just do them out of order.
Yeah, you can do
You don't have
it.
to do them in order.
I think that's the chair's prerogative. New business, we do have to, I know we're still trying to get the Board of Health, and Chief Ford could not come on the 9th, and then Mike, who is the liaison, is away or can't make the next meeting, so do you want me to just have Mike set it up whenever he can, when Chief Ford can come? Because once we're done with the 9th, we don't have anybody scheduled yet.
I
But
don't.
we want to finish
Yeah,
fairly
I'll meet
soon,
with,
budget.
with the chief and go over his budget and give him some feedback. If there's questions after that we need to go back to, I'm happy to do that, but don't get him here when he can show up and
All right.
on a night that's here. I don't have to be here. He can speak to his budget very much better than I, and I don't need to make the motion as the liaison to move it forward, so.
Okay.
Kathy, as a reminder, I'm not sure you saw my email, and I'm going to try to avoid identifying the person involved for a reason I will not say. But that person who's heads one of the accounts I'm assigned, it is now unknown and unknowable whether that person will be able to appear on April 9th.
Oh, yes, okay.
Okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Now that I recall that
After the
email,
meeting,
but-
I'll be happy to, but it's not a public matter.
Right.
Involving the individual.
Right, yes. No, I understand that. Okay. Any other new business?
I guess mine's old business, so that's what I'm waiting
All right.
for.
Okay. Old business.
You had mentioned, last week that you were going to get the school to come. Do you have any idea when that date's going to be?
I'll have to contact them.
Okay.
Or you can, I don't care.
Uh,
But I know the schedule better, I guess, so I'll
Okay.
contact them.
Thank you.
And they know their schedules. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll write that down too. School, Tom, Kevin, not you, Kevin, the Kevin,
Phil checked.
go check.
I
Yes.
need his contact information, too. Is he on the town website?
He should be.
Okay,
Yeah. And he's very prompt at getting back to you.
okay, good.
Any other old business? I don't see any public.
No public.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor? At 9:12, I believe. Thank you.